Have you ever had a memory that isn't just a memory, but a scar? A moment in time that branded itself onto your soul, so that even years later, a certain smell, a sound, or a stray thought can transport you right back to the feeling of being small, helpless, and utterly alone? For me, that scar is shaped like the fluorescent-lit hallways of a company called Viridian Dynamics, and it sounds like the mocking laughter of a woman named Diane. This isn't just a story about workplace bullying. This is a story about patience. It's about how the world changes, how power shifts, and how sometimes the best revenge isn't a dish served cold, but a truth served publicly, for the entire world to see. It took me 10 years to get my payback, but when I did, it was absolute. And it all started over a decade ago, when I was just a 22-year-old kid with a new degree and a heart full of hope, stepping into my first real corporate job. Viridian Dynamics wasn't glamorous. It was a mid-level logistics firm housed in a generic glass and steel building off the interstate. The kind of place with gray cubicle walls, stale coffee, and the constant, low hum of computers and forced air conditioning. To me, though, it was everything. It was my launching pad, my first step into the adult world. I was an assistant project coordinator, a title that sounded way more important than it was. My job was mostly data entry, scheduling, and fetching things for the senior project managers. I was eager, I was probably a little naive, and I made the mistake of thinking that if I just worked hard and was nice to everyone, I'd succeed. That's where I met Diane. Diane was in her late 30s or early 40s, a senior manager who had been with the company for over a decade. She had sharp, perfectly styled blonde hair, expensive-looking suits, and a smile that never, ever reached her cold, calculating eyes. She moved through the office like a shark patrolling its territory, all smooth, predatory grace. And for reasons I will never fully understand, she hated me from the moment she saw me. It wasn't one big, dramatic event. It was a slow, creeping poison. It started with little things. If I was in the break room getting coffee, she would walk in with her two main cronies, Karen and Jessica, and they would fall silent, staring at me until I felt so uncomfortable I'd just leave my half-made cup on the counter and walk away. They'd whisper just loud enough for me to hear, their words like little paper cuts. "Look at her shoes," one would giggle. "Did she get that blouse from a thrift store?" Diane was the queen bee, and the other women in the department were her hive. She had this uncanny ability to turn people against me before I even had a chance to introduce myself. New hires would be friendly to me on their first day, and by the end of the week, they'd be avoiding my gaze, suddenly too busy to join me for lunch. Diane would warn them about me, I later found out. She'd say I was not a team player, or a little strange, or that I couldn't be trusted. They were vague, unprovable accusations that painted me as an outcast. The psychological games were relentless. Diane would give me a task with a specific deadline, and then, an hour before it was due, she would stroll over to my desk and ask why I hadn't used the new template she'd supposedly emailed me. Of course, there was no email. When I'd say I never received it, she'd put on a show of theatrical disappointment. "Oh, Chloe," she'd sigh, loud enough for the whole cubicle farm to hear. "We talked about this. Attention to detail is so important. I guess I'll have to fix it myself." Again. She made me look incompetent, and I had no way to prove my innocence. But the worst of it was the public humiliation. She found my deepest insecurities and poked them with a stick. I was a little clumsy back then, still growing into my own body. Sometimes I'd trip over nothing, or knock something off my desk. It was embarrassing, but it happens. Diane turned it into a spectacle. The memory that is burned into my mind, the one that fueled my decade-long quest for revenge, happened on a cold Tuesday night in November. It was dark and raining. I was exhausted after a long day of being chipped away at, piece by piece. My boyfriend at the time, Mark, was picking me up, and he'd parked his car right out front. I remember feeling a tiny flicker of relief as I saw his headlights through the glass doors. Just a few more steps and I would be safe. As I walked down the wide concrete steps leading out of the building, I saw them. Diane, Karen, and Jessica were huddled under the awning, smoking. they watched me descend. I gripped the handrail, my only thought being, please don't trip, please don't trip. And then I heard Diane's voice, dripping with saccharine venom. "Oh, look at her," she said to her friends, a smirk playing on her lips. "Holding on for dear life. Better be careful, Chloe. We wouldn't want you to fall." They all erupted in this shrill, piercing laughter. It echoed in the damp night air. It wasn't just mean, it was cruel. It was designed to make me feel like a pathetic child. In that moment, I felt a hot, shameful blush creep up my neck. My eyes stung with tears I refused to let fall. I didn't say a word. I just got to the bottom of the steps, scurried to Mark's car, and slammed the door shut, my heart hammering against my ribs. I felt like I was suffocating. I tried to fight back, of course. I went to my direct manager, a milquetoast man named Greg who was terrified of confrontation. I explained the situation, how I was being isolated and ridiculed. He just wrung his hands and said, "Diane's a little intense. She's been here a long time. Just try to keep your head down." I went to HR. I filed a formal complaint. The HR lady, a woman named Brenda, listened with a plastic smile, took notes, and promised to look into it. A week later, she called me into her office and told me that after speaking with Diane and the others, she had concluded it was all just a personality conflict and a misunderstanding. Diane had apparently told HR that I was overly sensitive and misinterpreting her management style. They suggested I attend a workshop on effective communication. The system was designed to protect people like Diane, not people like me. I was trapped. That year at Viridian Dynamics broke something in me. It shattered my confidence. I started second-guessing everything I did. I became quiet, withdrawn. The bright, hopeful young woman who had walked in on the first day was gone, replaced by a ghost who just wanted to be invisible. After 13 months of this slow-motion torture, I quit. I didn't have another job lined up. I just knew I couldn't survive another day in that place. I walked out of Viridian Dynamics with my cardboard box of personal items, and I didn't look back. But the damage was done. The ghost of Diane and her laughter followed me for years. Leaving Viridian Dynamics didn't instantly heal the wound. The next 10 years were a slow, arduous process of rebuilding. I tempied for a while, worked some dead-end jobs. The bullying had left me with a kind of professional PTSD. In every new workplace, I was constantly on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop, scanning for the next Diane. I was hesitant to make friends, cautious about speaking up in meetings. I was afraid to shine, because at Viridian, shining had made me a target. But slowly, painstakingly, I started to heal. I found a job at a small marketing firm with a genuinely supportive culture. I went to therapy. I met the man who would become my husband, a kind and steady person who helped me see my own worth. I climbed the ladder, not with sharp elbows, but with good, honest work. I became a director of marketing. I was successful. I was happy. For the most part, I buried the memories of Viridian Dynamics. It was a closed chapter, a bad dream. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I'd remember that feeling on the steps, the sound of their laughter, and a cold, hard knot of anger would tighten in my stomach. It wasn't just anger. It was a craving for justice. A deep, primal need for some kind of reckoning. I wanted them to know what they had done. I wanted them to feel, just for a moment, the same humiliation they had inflicted on me. I wanted revenge. Then, one evening last year, fate delivered the perfect weapon right into my lap. I was scrolling through Facebook, mindlessly looking at pictures of my friends' kids and dogs, when I saw a suggested group in my feed. The name of the group hit me like a physical blow, Viridian Dynamics alumni and friends. My finger hovered over the join button. My heart started to race. It was like finding a secret key to a locked room I thought I'd never enter again. Part of me wanted to just scroll past, to leave the past in the past. But the other part, the part that still remembered the girl on the steps, knew this was an opportunity. This was the opening I had been waiting for a decade, even if I hadn't known I was waiting. I clicked join. A day later, a notification popped up: your request to join Viridian Dynamics alumni and friends has been approved. I opened the page. It was a digital time capsule. People I barely remembered were posting old office party photos from the early 2000s. There were posts memorializing colleagues who had passed away. There were cheerful updates: retired and loving it, or just became a grandpa. It was all so wholesome. So sanitized. A collective, curated memory of a place I remembered as a living hell. And then I saw her name. Diane. She was an active member. Her profile picture showed her with a frozen, overly Botoxed smile, standing on a cruise ship. Her posts were dripping with fake nostalgia. "Oh, I remember that Christmas party. We had so much fun," she'd comment on an old photo. "Such a great team. We were like a family." Family. The word made me sick. Karen and Jessica were there, too, liking all of Diane's comments, adding their own syrupy replies. "The best days, Diane. We really were the dream team." Reading their comments felt like they were spitting on my memory all over again. They were rewriting history, painting themselves as the heroes of a story where they had been the villains. And in that moment, my plan for revenge began to form. It would be so easy to just go in, guns blazing, and post a furious tirade. But I knew that wouldn't work. They would dismiss me as a crazy, bitter ex-employee. They would circle the wagons, deny everything, and the group admin would probably just delete my post and kick me out. No, this required a different approach. This required the patience I had learned over 10 long years. This was going to be a strategic campaign. My revenge would be a masterpiece of timing and execution. For the next 6 months, I played the long game. I became the perfect, friendly ghost of Viridian past. I was a silent observer at first, just watching, learning the dynamics of the group. Who were the main players? Who was still connected to the company's founders? Then, I started to engage. I'd like a post here and there. I'd leave a simple, positive comment on an old photo. "Wow, what a throwback. I remember that day," I'd write. I made sure to like posts from people who had been neutral or even kind to me back in the day. I was re-establishing myself not as a threat, but as a friendly, nostalgic former colleague. I was building my cover. I even liked a few of Diane's vapid comments, an act that made my skin crawl but was a necessary part of the strategy. I was laying a minefield, and they were all happily dancing on top of it, oblivious. I was waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect post. It needed to be something with high visibility. Something that would attract a lot of comments and, most importantly, something that the old guard, the company founders and senior executives who were also in the group, would see and engage with. My revenge couldn't just be for the other grunts, it had to be seen by the people at the very top. And then, one Tuesday evening, it happened. The golden opportunity. One of the company's co-founders, a semi-retired man named Mr. Abernathy, posted a long, heartfelt message. It was accompanied by a picture of the original team from the 90s. His post was all about the Viridian family, the company's core values of respect, integrity, and teamwork. He wrote about how proud he was of the culture they had built over the years. It was perfect. It was so beautifully, wonderfully hypocritical. The post blew up. Within hours, it had over 200 likes and dozens of comments. Former VPs and directors were all chiming in. "Well said, sir. Proud to have been a part of it." And then, the checkmate move. I saw that both Diane and Mr. Abernathy himself had liked the post. My targets were in place. The audience was assembled. The stage was set. My heart was pounding in my chest. This was it. 10 years of suppressed anger, of humiliation, of feeling powerless, it was all about to be unleashed. I opened a Word document, and I started to write. I didn't write with rage. I wrote with cold, hard clarity. I was building a case. I was presenting evidence. This wasn't going to be a rant, it was going to be an indictment. I took a deep breath, my finger hovering over the comment box under Mr. Abernathy's saccharine post. My hands were shaking slightly, but my mind was crystal clear. I copied the text from my Word document and pasted it. I read it one last time. Every word was a carefully placed stone. Every sentence was a memory I was reclaiming. And then, I clicked post. My comment went live. Here's what it said, word for word. It's heartening to see you talk about respect, integrity, and teamwork, Mr. Abernathy. It truly is. It makes me wonder if those values were meant to apply to all employees, or just a select few. Because my memory of the Viridian family is quite different. My name is Chloe Jensen. I worked in the project coordination department from 2013 to 2014. And for over a year, I was the target of a relentless, soul-crushing bullying campaign led by one of your most valued senior managers, Diane Peters, and enthusiastically supported by her colleagues, Karen Miller and Jessica Finch. This wasn't a personality conflict. This was systematic, psychological abuse. It involved them deliberately isolating me, spreading malicious rumors to new hires to turn them against me, and sabotaging my work by withholding key information and then publicly shaming me for being incompetent. I'm sure some of you might remember. You might have seen them fall silent when I entered a room. You might have heard their whispers and giggles. Most of you probably just looked away, not wanting to get involved. I don't blame you. I was 22 years old and didn't know how to fight back against a woman 10 years my senior who had the entire department in her pocket. But some things, you never forget. Like the night Diane, Karen, and Jessica stood on the front steps of the building and loudly mocked me as I walked down to my boyfriend's car, laughing about how I might fall. An act of such petty, profound cruelty that it has stayed with me for a decade. I went to HR. I was told I was being too sensitive. My complaint was dismissed. The system that was supposed to protect me, protected my abuser instead. I quit my job without another one lined up because my mental health was in tatters. So, when I see posts about the good old days and the Viridian family, I have to speak up. Because my experience was part of the Viridian story, too. The part that gets swept under the rug. I'm naming names because I reported these names to HR 10 years ago and they did nothing. I'm saying this publicly because the silence was what allowed it to happen. Diane, Karen, Jessica. I wonder if you remember. I do. I remember everything. And as you all celebrate this sanitized version of the past, I want to add my story to the record. Because the internet is forever. And so is the truth. I hit send. For a moment, there was silence. Just my comment, sitting there under all the cheerful ones. It looked stark, out of place, like a crack in a perfect porcelain vase. And then, the notifications started. First, it was the likes. 1, then 5, then 20. They came from people I barely knew, other quiet people from different departments who had probably seen it all. Then came the comments, replying directly to my story. A woman named Sarah, who had worked in accounting, wrote, "Chloe, I am so sorry this happened to you. I always thought Diane and her crew were toxic. Thank you for your courage in speaking up." A guy from the IT department wrote, "I remember you, Chloe. You were always so polite. I'm disgusted to hear this. Good for you for calling them out." Another woman posted, "Oh my God. Diane did the same thing to me when I first started. I thought I was the only one. I quit after 6 months." My story had opened the floodgates. It turned out I wasn't the only one. My single comment became a rallying point for all the other ghosts of Viridian dynamics. Story after story came pouring out, all naming the same people. Diane, Karen, Jessica. The dream team. I sat back, watching my screen, feeling a decade of weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't just about my personal revenge anymore. It was about collective validation. All of us who had been made to feel small and crazy were suddenly seeing our reality confirmed, in public, for everyone to see. Then, I saw the activity I was waiting for. Karen Miller's comment appeared, "This is a complete lie and slander." Chloe was a disgruntled employee who couldn't handle the pressure. It was a weak, pathetic defense. And the group immediately turned on her. A disgruntled employee? Or one of your many victims? Someone shot back. Are all these other women lying too, Karen? Another asked. Karen's comment was quickly buried under a mountain of angry face reactions. Then, her comment was deleted. Then Jessica's. Then, I noticed that Diane, Karen, and Jessica had all unliked Mr. Abernathy's original post. They were in full-blown panic mode. The most satisfying moment came about an hour in. I got a private message request. It was from Diane. Her message was a frantic, typo-ridden mess. "Chloe, you need to take that post down right now. This is defamation. You are ruining my reputation. People are messaging me. This was all a misunderstanding from years ago. You were always so sensitive. Please take it down, I'm begging you." I stared at her words. I'm begging you. 10 years ago, I was the one begging. Begging for the bullying to stop. Begging for someone to believe me. Begging for help that never came. I took a screenshot of her message. And then, I typed out my reply. It was short. It was simple. No. I blocked her. The fallout was spectacular. The Facebook group became a dumpster fire of accusations and confessions. The original, wholesome post by Mr. Abernathy was now a permanent monument to the toxic culture he had claimed to abhor. I heard through the grapevine that he was mortified. The story spread outside the group. People who still worked at Veridian were talking about it. The carefully constructed reputations of Diane and her friends were shattered in a single evening, not by lies, but by a truth they thought had been buried long ago. My revenge was complete. But it didn't feel like a fiery, explosive victory. It felt like peace. It was the quiet, profound satisfaction of closing a circle. The girl who cried in her car on that rainy Tuesday night finally got to stand up and speak her truth. The power they had over me was based on my silence and their perceived authority. By speaking up, I had taken all that power back. They bullied me at work. They tried to break my spirit and erase my worth. But they forgot one crucial thing. They forgot that the world moves on. They forgot that a 22-year-old intern can become a 32-year-old director. And most of all, they forgot that in the digital age, nothing is ever truly gone. You can't just bully someone into silence and expect it to stay that way forever. Because the internet is forever. And as they learned that night, it is also undefeated.